if you're wondering what to do after an ulnar nerve transposition, right after you're in acute phase and you've just been cleared to start using your hand and doing some exercises, you've come to the right video, because I've gone through this myself, and a lot of times people aren't prescribed a therapy after an ulnar nerve transposition. It's a quicker recovery, and sometimes the physician thinks that therapy is not indicated. You still need to get your strength back throughout your entire range of motion, and going back to sport without doing that is a recipe for disaster. So we're going to just start with some basic exercises that we use to get the athletes that we work with back to where they need to be, so they're able to recruit velocity in the way they need to recruit it to throw hard. They're able to swing, go through their full excursion of their swing without discomfort, and improve from where they were before. So you want to start the recovery process as soon as your physician allows you to begin exercise and using your wrist and hand. Sometimes people are in a cast and they're limited. A lot of times they're not. I know I was put in a splint or soft cast for a little bit. Once I was able to start doing exercises, I was able to start some of these and progress them to the point where I'm moving back to training for my sport. So one thing we like to use is a putty. There's different TheraPutties with different resistances. So I've got one here. Once I pull it out of this container, and there's some different exercises we can use with TheraPutty. If you don't have access to TheraPutty, you can buy some online, or you can get some silly putty, which is going to be less resistance than, say, this green putty. And the TheraPutty comes in different resistances. So this would be right below blue, would be a more difficult resistance, especially if you're just starting and you don't have much grip strength, because I realize how it is. You don't have a lot when you get out. Most important thing is moving again, increasing the blood flow without stressing the tissues that are healing. You don't want to put any pressure, tension, shear force on that nerve. So I like to just sit here, do some squeezes, just working the putty really slow, nice controlled squeezes. Just trying to work through, and this is a more difficult putty, but like I said, find one that's soft enough that you can squeeze, but difficult enough where you're working the muscles a little bit, and you'll get fatigued quick. And you're just moving it around, squeezing it in different planes, different areas. So I'll go through a fair bit of that. Then you can do some pulls where you're pulling with the thumb and the side of the finger, just trying to grab a little bit of putty, pull it, grab a little more, pull it, not far, just little pulls. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm just pulling, and then once I do a little bit of that, I can grab it with more of a pincer grip, pull. I can do all fingers, or I can just use one. Great exercises right when you get out. So go back to kneading it a little bit. Something we like to do right there, I like to grab a band after we get done with that. We'll grab a band. I like to actually loop it over my fingers. We actually use TheraWebs. Not a lot of people have those, so you can use a band. Sometimes we put a rubber band around the fingers, and that's a way we can work some of those extensors, extensor digitorum, some of the finger intrinsics, and then I just try to separate my fingers. You can see I'm pushing into the band, separating it. Very difficult exercise. This is a more difficult band. Trying to keep your thumb under there. Sometimes it can be difficult. Hold. I'm just holding the band on my fingers with this other hand. Great exercise to do. Keeping the repetitions light. You don't want to overstress your tissues. Remember, they've cut through skin, they've cut through some muscle, and they've cut and burned some of your different vasculature in there. Be aware of that. So after you've done that, if you're able to progress through that, you're going to go, maybe if you have a gripper like this is something we use, different grippers. Like I said, this might be difficult at first. There's different progressions in these digiflex. And you're squeezing it, holding it, squeezing it, holding it. These ones actually got each individual finger that you can use. So some basic grip stuff, hand intrinsic, when you start off, move more into the extensors and flexors, FCU. I can go off the edge of a table, off the edge of a table like this, and I can just do some simple wrist curls. Just trying to get these muscles active. They've been dormant, sitting in a sling. Doesn't take long for muscles to atrophy when they've been cut through or sitting in a sling where they're not working. So I can just do some like this. I can flip it over, do some wrist extensions. Do it with bent elbow, straighten elbow, so flexion and extension, because I'm working the muscle in different contractile ranges. So I can do it flexion, can do it flexion this way, or extension. So I've worked both of those. I can always grab the end of this, or I actually have a cane. So a cane wouldn't be too much resistance. We use bats with our healthy athletes when we do similar exercises. I can do some radial deviation, most difficult here, or I can do it standing, where it's going to be more difficult in the mid-range. Keeping my wrist nice and flat. I can do it the opposite direction. Move this chair back a little bit. Wrist flat, ulnar deviation. Focusing on that end range contraction. FCU is a really important muscle to get strengthened again, because they actually have to cut through it a lot of times to move that nerve, especially because that nerve comes through the cubital tunnel and innervates that muscle, and so they have to actually split it a little bit to move that nerve out in front of the medial epicondyle. So we like to do those, and then you can even do and progress it. So some supination, pronation, a little bit longer lever arm. Need that pronator to be strong. They use the fascia from the pronator a lot of times to create a fascial sling over it. So there's damage to that pronator. There's damage to that FCU. These muscles have been dormant on the backside and the posterior aspect of the forearm. And some of the other flexors have been either damaged or irritated or exacerbated as a result of surgery. Surgery is a traumatic thing. So we like to start off as early as possible with some just basic exercises like this. So if you're watching this video, you're new to our channel, make sure to subscribe. We're coming out with new videos all the time on exercises, stretches, rehabilitation techniques, manual therapy techniques, a whole array of things to increase human performance, increase athletic performance. So make sure to subscribe and like this video if you felt you benefit from it. If you have questions on some more advanced techniques or more advanced strengthening protocols, that's something we're going to do in a future video, so let us know in the comments section. We'll be able to address that in that video. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.